Hey, welcome back to the channel. I've got a couple new Victorinoxs to share with y'all today. And these are kind of interesting. Like they're the same size, same width, but they're drastically different knives. And it kind of got me to thinking about what makes these Victorinoxs different and collectible. And so we're going to be talking about that today in the video. I hope that you'll join me.
I didn't have wheels on it.
What? Is this a picture of our wedding? No.
All right, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi to all my viewers. So got two new Victorinoxs, and this one right here's claim to fame is this magnifying glass. It's an Explorer model. The Explorer model has the most tools packed into a 4-layer Victorinox of any other Victorinox. This one is called the Grand Prix, and of course it has this really cool car inlay on it, and this is a discontinued model of the Grand Prix. But what got me thinking about this is if you look at this, the screwdriver is a little different on that. Do you see that? It's a little different than the normal screwdriver. And that just got me thinking about, what really is it about these Victorinoxs that make them so collectible? Victorinoxs are arguably the most popular and collectible knife in the world. They sell 25 million of these knives in 192 different countries, and that's just phenomenal. And the thing about these is they're not only collectible, but they're users. I think that's most people. This is a Spartan model, and this is one of the most popular models of Victorinox. The SD Classic is the other one. These two are the most popular models, and most people use these knives, but we also get sucked into collecting them, and so we're going to talk about that a little, how they do that. So this model right here is a 2-layer model. You have 4 tools on the front. The standard, what became the standard Victorinox model. You have a cap lifter, you have a can opener, you have a large blade, you have a pen blade, and then you have a back layer that has a corkscrew and a leather punch. This model was what was called the original officer's knife and came out in 1897. This is kind of what started it all. When Carl Eisner put this knife out, he wasn't thinking about how collectible his knives would be. He was thinking about making a good user knife, and these were good utility knives. By 1950, there's a catalog right up there. There were only 8 models of this knife. This was one of them that was offered in that catalog, the Camper. And this Camper model was another old variation of these knives. But by 1960, there were 18 different models offered in the catalogs. That's more than double the number from the previous decade. And by 1970, 35 of these models were offered. I'll tell you, by that time, Carl, the Victorinox had figured out that their knives were collectible, and they were adding models just to make them collectible. And that was also around 1970, so that was when the knife collecting hobby was expanding in America, and all that demand for collectible knives came around. But I thought we'd look at how uh, some other collectible models handle that and make their knives collectible. So here's a Rough Rider brand. This is a copperhead. It's an old vintage model of American knife, and pretty much Rough Rider sticks with these vintage models of knives. And what they do is they put an array of different scale materials on their knives that are attractive, cool, interesting, and that's one of the ways they create collectability in their knives. You might have 10 different scale variations on a copperhead, which makes the model collectible. In addition, they might offer different type of blade variation on them. Here's another Rough Rider. You can see on this model there's some worked bolsters and an interesting scale here. And also on the blades, you see that it's etched with a cool slogan. So a bunch of different ways that they use to make their knives collectible, make people want to collect them. This is a Frost, and pretty much the same thing. Different scales on traditional models, sometimes worked bolsters, and all kinds of different patterns that they offer. And these knives are user knives too, although Frost knives aren't really known for their durability, but you can use them. Then you have upper end level knives like this Rough Rider Reserve. Now, these knives are collectible uh, in that they kind of have different unusual patterns, and then they have a very high quality to them too. So these are excellent user knives, as well as being interesting and collectible to people because of these different patterns that are just very unusual. They kind of appeal to people. In the 90s, Case became a collectible knife company. And so they did it by a variation of these beautiful bone scales and a variety of different jiggings that they put on their knife. And they also vary the shields on them. But they used, again, mostly traditional patterns. Sometimes there's some different patterns that they offer. But again, these are very usable knives. And so people collect them to use them, but also for all the different beautiful scale materials that Case offers. And they offer a lot more than bone. But Victorinox went a different way. Victorinox, interestingly, their scales are kind of basic, and so there's black, you get red, sometimes there's blue ones, sometimes green, but pretty much those are your basic colors, and red is the primary color that you find on most of their knives. If you look at their scale, their logo is the same on every knife, except over time there was some variation in these um, logos. In addition to that, you can see, like on here, it has another inlay in here, which is really cool. And this has one here, but there are very few models that have this inlay on them. So it's not a real big thing. They don't do a lot of this in their knives. What they did do is they offered a couple models, and so the Spartan and the SD do have a lot of cool variation in their scales that really draw people in. to make them, want to get these different ones. It's very personal too. And so if you like chickens, like my wife, she loves a chicken SD, just chicken on it. And I like these right here, but there's only about 30 of these at any given time. So it's not the main collectability of these knives what attracts people. So what is it? Victorinox uses a couple methods to create collectability in their knives. One is these layers in the tool sets that each knife has. So this is a very basic model here. It has 2 layers, and they'll vary the tool set in these layers to create different knives and different collectability. And so this is called a Spartan model, and all they did, this is a 2-layer knife. It has the same tools as this Spartan, but if you look on the back, it has different back layer tools. And so they just swapped out the corkscrew for the Phillips. Now, this makes sense because I don't like a corkscrew and I prefer the Phillips, and a lot of people do. And so it creates a greater personal experience. There's people who like the corkscrew. And so it creates a market, a different market for basically the same knife. And then that's continued on. You have a 3-layer knife, and then there's 4-layer knives, and on and on. And so that creates a lot of collectability there. And then they've also taken and used different size knives. So you have a 91 millimeter version, you have 84 millimeter versions, you have a 58 millimeter version, and then you have a 111 millimeter version, all with different tool sets. That creates a lot of collectability within that knife. So the greatest draw, I think, on these knives is the tool sets. You see a picture up there. They have 49 different basic tools, but in addition to the basic tools, they also have special tools. And so like the orange peeler you could see there in a model, or the cut and picker blade in the ALOX model you could see right there. And so there's a tremendous variation of these tools. And not only do they have variation in the tools, but if you look at the, for instance, the screwdriver, there are 4 different kinds of these common screwdrivers that they offer. And there's also the evolution of those tools. And that's really what started this video. And so if you look at this screwdriver I got on this new knife, it's very different, and I noticed that, and I was like, well, what the heck, I never seen one like that before. And if you look at this screwdriver, it's a 3-sided all-type screwdriver. You see that? And this is one of the earliest screwdrivers that were put on Victorinoxs. This is the Phillips was added to Victorinox in 1950. And this was one of the earliest models. The earliest had a file right here. And then that was dropped, and you had a model like this. Then in 1970, they split the screwdriver. You see that split right there? And what that's for is they used to make these tins that had tabs, and you would take the key. They had keys, and then you take this key, and it had a slot in it like this. Whoop, focus. It had a slot in it like that. You put it on that little tab, and you can open the can. There's a picture right there of that very thing going on. And so that created a lot of another use for a tool, and pretty necessary one, because those keys would either break or get lost or didn't work. And so this really was a useful item to have on a knife. And finally, in 1980, you get to the Phillips that we have now, the round Phillips, like right there. And so all this variation creates collectability too. You can see you even have a front layer Phillips that was added, and there's variations of this knife. So let's just look at a knife and say you just liked a certain model and wanted to collect that. So say you wanted to collect a camping model. So this is basically has the same tool set as a 2-layer Spartan knife. You can see it right there. But what they did is they added a layer, so it's a 3-layer knife, and they added a saw, making it a camping knife, helpful for camping. And so this is a model that you can find in 1903 catalogs. So it's a pretty old model, one of the first ones that they developed in their line of 91 millimeter knives. You can also find this in the 1940s, and it has a model number of 237. There's also an Econoline version of this, and their Econoline is a less expensive model of Victorinox that has cheaper scales on it, and maybe the whole knife is cheaper. But there's also a Marlboro version that was used in the Marlboro catalog program, and those are exclusive knives. There's also a Canadian version called the Grouse Camper. It's right there, up there in the picture. So you've got maybe 5-6 different versions of this knife, but there's also like this camping logo that was put onto here. The first ones were aluminum, then there's a stainless steel one, then they were stamped in, just stamped, and then there were models that were screen printed. So all of that has changed over time, and all of that is different variation. And so that brings you up to like 9 different models if you wanted each one of those. There's also that variation in these tools I talked about. So there's 4 different kind of corkscrews. You can see this is the kind that has the slot down in the middle, what they call fluted corkscrew. There's also variation in other tools. So this is the leather punch or awl. This is the 3rd version of this, and this is the version without the eye. And then in 1980 they added the eye to that, and that was a different version. So if you were to collect every version of this knife, you could easily be talking 10, 12 different versions. Some of these versions may incorporate the different variations of these tools, but some of them may not. And they don't necessarily coincide with, different decades. They're just different times that these tools were changed. And it may coincide with another variation, or it may not. So if you end up with 10, 12 versions of this knife, that's just in this model. Victorinox today has 200 different models of knives. Tremendous variations, caused by these different tools, different tool sets that they offer. And there's also, variations in color. And so this not Econoline, Explorer model. Man, I got so many models on my mind, I forgot. This Explorer model, came in different colors. So they come in red, of course. This is a black version. They probably came in different colors besides that. So all of that is tremendous variation in these knives. So I started my journey in Victorinox as a user, like most people do. It was a very useful tool to have, and I had several of them. But that was all. I had a couple that I used for different kits. The hunting model is my favorite. It has the tool set I like. I put it in a bunch of different kits, and then of course I had a smaller Spartan that I could just carry around and use, during the average activities during the day. But when I started collecting these, it was basically to get the different models in these different layered tool sets that you have. But I quickly realized, like, this is a discontinued model, so I try to collect the discontinued ones first because they get hard to find. This is actually a scarce model to find right here, and then you start getting in. You look at each model and you see the variations and the changes in the tools, and it just sucks you in. It's very insidious and mysterious, but it's very interesting too, and it's fascinating to see the changes in these knives and these tool sets, and the variation in them, and the genius that really goes into these knives. I mean, that little slot is very simple, but it is really genius, and it was useful in the 50s through the 70s to a particular type of need that people had. And that's the beauty of these knives. There is really a lot of thought that goes into them, a lot of history, and it's just very fascinating. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for checking out the videos and all the support that you give the channel.